I want to apologize to you. I have been writing columns and have suggested to you in these videos that the Democrats didn't have an agenda. In other words, they were just nihilists. But I went back and looked at everything they've said, everything they've written, what their surrogates and the media have done, and I discovered they do have a counter agenda. They really do. And it's organized. And I want to give it a fair hearing right now. So I wrote down 10 things that I think are thematic of the Democratic agenda. Hello, this is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. I want to apologize to you. I have been writing columns and have suggested to you in these videos that the Democrats didn't have an agenda. In other words, they were just nihilists. But I went back and looked at everything they've said, everything they've written, what their surrogates and the media have done, and I discovered they do have a counter agenda. They really do. And it's organized. And I want to give it a fair hearing right now. So I wrote down 10 things that I think are thematic of the Democratic agenda that offers an alternative to Donald Trump. The first is that Donald Trump must be considered, as Chris Matthews just said, a Mussolini-like figure. He must be opposed in every aspect. He must be demonized. Everything he does is evil. And by extension, the same is true of Elon Musk. You must consider him an alien that should go back home to South Africa, that he's not a true American. He's only been here 23 years. You cannot talk about his Tesla revolution that pretty much saved the idea of an electric vehicle. You cannot talk about the successes of SpaceX. You cannot talk about saving social media by opening up and getting the government out, i.e. the FBI colluding with the old Twitter. You cannot talk about giving free internet service to Ukraine. He's evil, and everything he does must be opposed. And we must continue that to the point where he is depersonalized. The second thing I've noticed very quickly is ICE is wrong. You have to stop ICE from deporting anybody, even if they're a criminal. Open borders are completely normal. We let in 12 million people under Joe Biden. We have no apologies whatsoever. No major Democrat has come forward and said we made a mistake. We've overloaded communities like the San Joaquin Valley or the Rio Grande Valley or the inner city. It's cost us perhaps $1 trillion in social costs. We apologize. No, everything about open borders was wonderful, and we will try as Democrats as much as we can to stop ICE from deporting even criminals. Sanctuary cities are immune, 600 of them. Radical Palestinians are to be favored over Israel. We see that with the controversy over Mahmoud Khalil. We in the Democratic Party feel that Israel is a settler country. Now, this is the only issue that the majority of Democrats are clearly for. About 70%, 65% of Democrats favor the Palestinian cause. So there's no ambiguity about it now. Democrats feel that Israel is the culprit, and if there's anti-Semitism on campus, it's sporadic or it's done by people other than the pro-Hamas green card holder or student visa holder. There should be no cuts in the federal government. We have a $1.7 trillion deficit. Joe Biden probably racked up $7 to $8 trillion in additional debt, but $36 trillion is no problem. We're not going to discuss it. All we know is there should be no layoffs. Everything that USAID was funding was fine, and the federal government was running perfectly until Donald Trump came. There was no abuse, fraud, anything. We have never talked about fraud and abuse in recent years, and there was a reason why. We're perfectly happy with these massive deficits. Ukraine, Donald Trump with his art of the deal antics, threatening to cutting off, restoring aid to Ukraine, it's a mess. We have to go back to the Biden approach. We'll do whatever it takes for as long as it takes. So we need to up the amount of aid, maybe $300 or $400 or $500 billion to Ukraine, and enable it to defeat Russia. And if that costs 2 or 3 million casualties, we don't care. We offered no alternative ceasefire plan, no strategic resolution, nothing other than to feed the Ukrainians to defeat Vladimir Putin and bleed out the Russian military forces, even if it takes the last Ukrainian to do so. DEI should have never been cut out. We still have to emphasize that we are a country of white rage, white privilege, white supremacy, and we in the Democratic Party will find ways to work around these executive orders. But maybe we will have to reclassify the titles of diversity, equity, inclusion officers, but we will not give up on it. We had a recent air traffic controller supervisor who was leaking the test questions to DEI applicants. This is the type of activity we endorse. We have to be much more radical in our opposition. So when Donald Trump speaks before Congress, we must shout him down. Al Green is an iconic hero. Most of us refuse to censor him. He shook his cane and disrupted Congress. That's good. Jasmine Crockett is the new spokesman of the Democratic Party. And in association with that, also, it's very important for us to use the F word, the SHI blank word, the DICK word. We're going to make videos where we use this profanity. We're going to shout out that in Congress. The point is that to appeal to the lost middle-class supporter, we have to sound earthy, and we plan on doing that. And finally, we've got to create chaos. So anything Donald Trump, as I said, anything that Elon Musk does, any cabinet members' initiatives, we have to go hysterical. And the point is this: we prefer slow decline. We understand we had $36 trillion in debt. We understand we were running a $1 trillion trade deficit. We understand our military was shrinking. We understand that we were investing over $1 trillion in a commissar-like DEI. I could go on. But that was a slow decline. It wasn't controversial. With the open border, yes, it was open, but there was no hysteria. We just let in 12 million people illegally. We even flew them in at night, so it wouldn't bother you. So the point is, slow decline, quiet, calm, is much preferable to loud restoration. Why cause all these problems? We were declining very slowly. We could have gone on like this for 20 years. But why did we have to suddenly think that we needed to stop and to arrest the decline? That's pretty much it. A 10-point agenda by the Democratic Party. Thank you very much. This is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. Thank you for watching today's podcast. And for more news like that, subscribe to the Daily Signal. And maybe you can check out my own website at victorhanson.com for podcasts, lectures, ultra series behind a paywall, but more importantly, just daily columns that are accessible and free to everyone. Thank you very much.